Do you ever get hit with those rapid fire questions at the end of a patient visit? You know the ones. Is it bad to eat after 8? Should I be drinking electrolytes? Oh, hey, what are some good protein options because I don't like to cook? You know, those questions. Well, after last week's deep dive into lipids, we're lightening things up today with an episode full of bite-sized answers to those everyday nutrition questions your patients love to throw at you right as you're reaching for the door. I'm Colleen, a PA, dietitian, and your nutrition mentor. Welcome to the Exam Room Nutrition Podcast, your guide to giving better nutrition advice. My guest today is Nina, a registered dietitian and weight management expert, who's walking us through what I like to call the core pillars of everyday health hacks. So we're going to be talking about no-cook nutrition, what to say when your patient admits that they hate cooking, or maybe they don't know how, but they're trying to eat healthier. You know, a lot of patients don't realize that eating healthy doesn't have to mean meal prep Sundays. Next, we're going to talk about sleep hygiene, how protein, sugar, and micronutrients impact your patient's rest. And lastly, we'll round it out with common questions about hydration and electrolytes, who needs them, and what to recommend when plain water gets boring. Plus, Nina shares 2 label reading shortcuts you can pass along to patients who need better options, especially when they're standing in front of the frozen food section with no idea what to choose. From the I don't cook crowd to the patients who live on convenience foods, or maybe they ask about tart cherry juice for sleep, you're going to love this episode. So thanks for bringing me along for your walk, your commute, or wherever you've carved out time to listen. I'm so glad that you're here. Now enjoy my conversation with Nina. Nina, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I can't wait to get into this really useful topic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to chat.
Okay, so I want to just get right into this big question, and it is, do we really have to cook to eat healthy? What are your thoughts on that?
I love this question, and I see patients asking me this every single day. And while I love promoting good cooking habits and get people in the kitchen, I get it, right? Like, we're all busy. We all have very hectic lives. So yeah, no, you don't have to always cook to eat healthy, right? There are some good convenience foods out there to make your life a little bit simpler. Things that I usually recommend. Actually, like, one of my personal favorites is just a Greek yogurt and some berries with some chia seeds, or even like those Greek yogurt, like smoothie drinks with a side of a fruit or something for an easy, quick, on the go, no cook breakfast. So no, like, you don't have to cook to eat healthy. There are some really awesome ready to eat foods to make our lives a little bit simpler.
Okay, I'm really happy to hear that, because even for me, like, as a busy working mom, I actually don't like to cook. I know it's weird that a dietitian doesn't love to cook, but I don't like it because I'm just always so pressed for time. It's reassuring to hear that you don't have to cook. And clinicians might be surprised to find out that their patient has no idea, like, how to cook. It's a really big gap. And I think in our education, especially in America, that a lot of adults have no idea how to throw together like a balanced meal. So what are like 3 things that maybe a clinician could suggest at no cook meals that still meet those guidelines for not a lot of added salt, not a lot of added sugar? What are some things that we can suggest for the patient sitting in front of us who's like, I am not going to be cooking, so what do I eat?
My top 3 meals for on the go, quick, easy, tell your patients: rotisserie chicken, side salad, right? That's a good quick dinner. You could do deli meat roll-ups and get an avocado with some bell peppers, right? We got those snack peppers or snack cucumbers, things like that. So they can still get some nutrient dense foods into their diet, but they don't take any hard extra work. They just need to make sure that they have them on hand. Carrot sticks with those deli roll-ups, cheese stick, things like that, or some sort of like an oatmeal type breakfast that we can add in some protein with some nuts or seeds. And all of these suggestions are still going to focus on getting in fruits or vegetables and some good lean protein that doesn't take like really any extra preparation, right? Maybe you're just rinsing off those veggies real quick.
I love those suggestions. So for those of you who are thinking, she said deli meat, but I've heard, but there's some unsafe ingredients and stuff. I actually did an episode that specifically addresses deli meat. It's episode 61. So after this episode, go check out that. It's part of my last year's summer short series. It's called Is Deli Meat Bad for Me? And I look at the science behind that because deli meat can be used as part of a healthy diet. So go check out episode 61 after this one. So for patients who rely on convenience food, for whatever reason, their schedule, that's just what they prefer, what are some things they should look for on labels to help them make smarter choices? Because convenience foods range widely in calories, sodium, sugar content. So just help us guide our patients on making the best choices with that.
Excellent. Yeah. So biggest thing is, right, making sure your patient can identify what a food label is and being able to read that. So I always like kind of make sure they understand like that. Do you know what a food label is, or have you ever looked at it? And if they have no idea, you might want to consider having them work with a dietitian so we can educate them on that. Because I'm always surprised at how little people actually look at them or understand them whatsoever. So that's first and foremost. But when we're looking at food labels, a couple of things that I educate my patients on first and foremost is protein and fiber. Okay. We want to make sure we're getting enough fiber. On the average, I see patients coming in and they're getting maybe 8 grams of fiber, 8 to 12. I mean, we need at least 25 grams for females and at least 35 grams for males. That's the bare minimum, and we're not even close. So we want to make sure our patients understand that they're looking for at least 3 to 5 grams of fiber per serving. My simple rule of thumb that I tell my patients is for every 100 calories, it should have about 1 gram of fiber. Super simple, like a 1-to-1 ratio, right? Now, that's not going to be true with everything, but that's the goal. We want to try to look for that. And then protein, right? So protein is going to keep our patients satisfied for longer. We know the benefits of protein. Obviously, I focus more on weight management, so protein is essential for that as well. So we want at least 10 grams of protein and usually 3 to 5 grams of fiber per serving is what I'm kind of looking for on that add-in. And then I always tell my patients we want to reduce our overall added sugars, right? Americans in general are just getting in too much sugar. So we want to work on that. No more than 6 grams of sugar in those snacks. If they're having added sugars, we really want to try to limit that as much as possible or reduce it. Natural sugars are great, but getting rid of those added sugars. So really educating your patient on added sugars specifically. And then lastly, I really like to point out the ingredient list, not to get like overwhelmed with it or anything like that, because we're not going to know everything. And food is basically made up of different sorts of chemical components, and that's okay. But ideally, we still want to avoid too many artificial sweeteners, too many preservatives and things like that. So just reducing that overall load is always going to be beneficial, and think more whole foods is better.
I really like that you gave us numbers because as a provider, that's like a very quick tip that they can put into action right away. So I want to reiterate, on the label, they can look for fiber content, and that would be 3 to 5 grams, and protein should be like a minimum of 10. I think that's a really great place to start if your patient is coming in like, how do I make the best choice in the frozen food aisle? I think that's a really easy tip that you can suggest. What are any like grocery store hacks, for lack of a better word, any pre-made options that we can recommend for quick, healthy meals?
Okay. Pre-made grocery store hacks. Okay. So I already talked about the ready-to-eat vegetables, carrots, mini cucumbers, mini bell peppers. Like, I love reminding people of the convenience of those. Like, we just kind of forget or walk past them, and they're staples in my house. So grocery store hacks besides those that I thought of would be rotisserie chickens, some of those salads, even the frozen vegetables, right? Steamer baked vegetables, things like that. You can go into the deli and get ready to eat salads. Sometimes even those wraps can be a decent option for a lot of patients. So I talk about having an emergency meal backup with all of my patients. And these are like, okay, you didn't have time to go to the grocery store this week because you've been like busy. And I like to always have some sort of like a healthy frozen pizza in my freezer for Friday nights. I mean, just like you, I'm a busy mom. Who doesn't love pizza? So cauliflower pizzas or anything that we can kind of get more vegetables in, more fiber, right? We're looking at those certain ingredients on the nutrition fact label. Primal Kitchen has some great options. I think it's called Evil, or it's like love backwards, but they make those little bowls. I think those are nice for, again, like kind of like those emergency meals. Maybe you didn't have time to prep lunch. That might be a decent option to get you getting in some more whole foods, focusing on fiber, getting in some protein.
I love that you prioritize fiber. That's my favorite nutrient to talk about because you're right. Nobody's getting enough of it. And really, it can just benefit so many different medical conditions that everybody would benefit from increasing their fiber intake. So I love that. But what about protein? Because if you don't love to cook, it's kind of tricky to get protein. It's quite easy to have plenty of carbs. So I'm curious is what are the easiest ways to get enough protein in without cooking?
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that about fiber and stuff too. I'm always talking about fiber with my patients, fiber and protein. So protein, best ways to get in without cooking are some of my personal favorites, hard-boiled eggs. You can either buy those already prepared, or I use the 5-5 method with an Instapot, super quick and easy, but you can do hard-boiled eggs. Cottage cheese is one of my favorite recommendations for a good source of protein without any prep work. Tuna, like tuna pouches, salmon pouches. You can even get chicken, like you can get chicken salads from the deli, things like that. And then I do tend to recommend protein shakes to really kind of help support my patients, right? Focusing more on weight management. It can be difficult to get in enough protein with my client base. I always preface though, don't get used to like using these as, don't overuse them. Like I tell my patients, one protein shake a day. Okay. Don't become dependent. Don't get all of your protein just from a shake. One shake a day is okay. But anything more than that, you've got to look for some whole foods to supplement.
Okay, so I want to move into another pillar of weight management, and that is sleep and sleep hygiene. So I'd love to hear what you found in like the research on how nutrition affects sleep quality.
So how nutrition affects sleep quality is very key, right? If we're not getting in enough of these certain micronutrients, we're going to have disrupted sleep. So things like enough magnesium, enough B vitamins, if we're not getting enough of those, then, and we're having any sort of nutrient deficiencies, it can lead to restless sleep. It's going to not allow our patients to actually get into that deeper REM cycle. And it can, especially if patients are coming in and they're having a lot of carbs and things like that before bed, it's going to mess with their blood sugar control. I see this a lot. Like people eat too many carbs before bed and then they're not sleeping, right? It's like they're getting this boost of energy before they go and lay down. I'm like, you don't need to do that. You're not going to go work out. We just need to get in some good high quality protein, eat some turkey, boost your serotonin, have a side salad for dinner. So I think magnesium rich, I think tryptophan. So protein and nuts and seeds, dark leafy greens, all of those are going to either support boosting serotonin and kind of getting our body ready for that relaxation. Obviously, the benefits of magnesium, right? We help support stress levels and can help the body relax. So getting in those dark leafy greens is going to kind of help support better sleep quality.
Okay, so if someone's sitting in front of us and they're like, okay, give me like 2 or 3 foods that I should munch on as maybe like a late night snack or an hour before bed, what are your favorite sleep promoting foods?
Turkey, some sort of like a casein protein as well. So maybe even like cottage cheese would be a great option. Nuts and seeds. So pepitas. So those are like the pumpkin seeds. Maybe a little shot of like dark cherry juice might be beneficial, just not too much, right? Because that's still got some natural sugars in it. And then always promoting having some sort of like dark leafy greens with dinner or a late night. I know that's a hard one for a lot of patients, right? Because they usually have that sweet tooth. So they really are having a hard time kind of breaking that sugar like craving before bed. Maybe a tiny piece of dark chocolate might also actually be beneficial for patients. Not too much though, because it might have a little microdoses of caffeine in it. So just a little bit of dark chocolate can also kind of just help support that nervous system, give them some magnesium and satisfy that sweet tooth.
You mentioned a few times like eating like before bed. So I know some people are really worried about eating late, and there's been sort of not conflicting evidence, but conflicting opinions about eating before bedtime. So I'm just curious as to that old rule of thumb of don't eat past 8 o'clock. Does this really impact sleep or not?
Yeah. When I'm working either with people in weight management or athletes, these are different things. So you can eat up to going to bed. It's just, what are you eating? Okay. It's all about what you're putting in, not necessarily the fact that you're consuming a food. So we want to think supporting stable blood sugars throughout the evening. So you want good fats, you want good protein sources so that we're not disrupting sleep. Those high carbohydrate meals, which I think are more common in Standard America, right? People have like ice cream before bed or these foods that are really high in sugars. That can disrupt our sleep. We want to actually get that body into a more relaxed state. Things like cottage cheese, right? The casein, it gives us that slow digestible protein. So you'll stay satisfied over the like that long period of time of resting. It's also going to support repair and recovery. So I think the best thing, I guess, to tie that all together, my thought process is you want to stabilize their overall blood sugar, and we want to give them protein and we want to give them fats, preferably the two things that are going to support things like serotonin and magnesium levels to reduce that stress and help them rest.
Okay, I want to move on to the next pillar of weight management, and that's hydration. And we hear, and we probably say to our patients all the time, oh, you got to drink 8 glasses in a day. So I'm curious if that rule still applies. And if not, how much water do patients actually need?
Yeah. So I think it's not a bad recommendation. Ideally, I think the best rule of thumb to get more customized advice to your patients would be to drink half of your body weight in ounces. Your patient can easily figure that out. It's a quick, easy, off the cuff like recommendation. You don't have to go calculating anything. And for the most part, I would say it's fairly accurate, right? So if we got 160-pound person, they're going to need about 80 ounces of water a day, right? And that's definitely adequate. Now, if we're looking at somebody that is exercising a lot, they might need a little bit more. But if it's just an average person and they're doing normal things, just half of your body weight in ounces a day, I think is a fair recommendation.
Yeah, I use that recommendation a lot just because it's easy to remember. And you don't, like you said, you don't have to do any calculation. So I really like that one too. And then the patient can kind of adjust based on if they had a sweaty day, like a really active day, or they're just more thirsty that day or not. So I think I love that rule of thumb. So let's talk about electrolytes a little bit. When do they matter, and who should take them, and who are they unnecessary for?
When we're thinking about overall hydration status, right? And I work with patients all over the country. So I see patients up in the Midwest here and then also like down where it's hotter in Florida and things like that. So we got to take in consideration like patient's environment. Are you sweating more? How hot is it where you live, or how cold is it? And we want to think about like replenishing certain electrolytes depending on your environment. So obviously in the summer, you got a construction worker coming into your office or something like that, they might need to replenish with some electrolytes, because just drinking enough water, we know that's going to put some of those imbalances in. So replenishing sodium, potassium is going to be key for people that are doing more physically active jobs or that are working out more. We need to replenish those. I think that's, I guess, who it's most important for is those athletes, those physical labor patients that are doing hard work like construction, things like that. The other one that I would recommend electrolytes is people that are experiencing a lot of cramping. So I've had some ultra runners and things like that, and really getting specific on like their sodium balance is the key between them finishing that 100-mile run and not finishing. So with those types of athletes, we get specific. We'll do there's certain places that you can do that salt testing and stuff like that, see how much sodium they're losing in their sweat daily so that you can adequately replace it. But in general, if people are just super, super tired, everybody goes to caffeine is king lately. I'm like, no, let's see if you can just replenish some of those electrolytes. Are you putting in those enough fluids? And then make sure that sodium, potassium, magnesium is balanced out. And last, you mentioned what about dieters, things like that. So I think electrolytes can be helpful for people that are on low carb diets because they're not getting in enough overall. So kind of helping to balance that out is also going to be key. So if you have somebody that's following keto for whatever reason, maybe an electrolyte supplement would be beneficial for them as well.
Yeah, and sometimes you get sick of plain old water. So just having that flavor can sometimes mix things up in the day, which actually leads me to my last question, which is for patients who really struggle drinking plain water, because I get it, like 80 ounces it's a lot and it gets boring. So how can we give them some advice for mixing it up a little bit without reaching for really sugary drinks like sodas and lemonades and teas and stuff like that?
Yes. My first go-to always is infuse your water. My favorite infusion is cucumber and mint. We talked about having those mini cucumbers on hand in the fridge and just kind of having those available. So infusing your waters with fresh herbs or fruits or vegetables is always my first go-to because then you're also getting that little snack and it's so refreshing. So natural's always my first recommendation. But also people just kind of crave that carbonation. Like a lot of my patients are coming drinking a lot of soda or those things like that. And it's okay. Well, as we transition off, they're just no, actually I just really that carbonation. So drinking things like LaCroix or any sort of bubbly water might be another good option to help patients get in enough. And then, right, we talked about those electrolytes. So adding in some sort of a flavored electrolyte to your water to again enhance the flavor, make it a little bit more enjoyable. Lastly, besides the different types of drinks, is having some sort of trigger to remind yourself to drink enough. So one of my biggest tips is I tell my patients, if you have your favorite water bottle and you need to fill it up 2 or 3 times a day, just get a little rubber band, put it at the top of your water bottle at the start of the day. And then once you finish that first water bottle, you just roll it down to halfway. And now you know you got 2 water bottles in. And then at the end of the day, if that rubber band gets to the bottom of your water bottle, so say you got to fill it up 3 times, you know that you finished those 3 water bottles. Now you know you're getting in enough fluids. Okay. So I'll just have them mark a little dot on their water bottle and then roll that rubber band down every time they go refill it to make sure that they're actually getting in enough. And then obviously we see those water bottles that have the times. So little motivation to help us get in enough fluids is also super beneficial.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. It's a trick that I use with kids is have the parent buy them some fun water bottles. So it actually makes it they are proud to carry it around. They want to bring it to school. Those little tricks work for adults too. I've seen those gallon jugs where it's almost there. You're amazing. And it sounds so silly, but it really is helpful just to have some of that positive affirmations and those reminders. The other strategy I love is habit stacking. I believe it's from James Clear. I'm sure you know about this, which is if you wanted to do something new, let's take water, do that on top of a habit you're already doing. So for example, after you brush your teeth, drink 16 ounces of water, or when your coffee is brewing, drink a glass of water instead of just standing there scrolling on Instagram. And that works really, really well because the patient is already doing that one thing. Now we're just tacking on something else. So it's not really disrupting their day-to-day habits that much. So I find that really effective too.
Yeah. And it makes it super sustainable for them. So I absolutely love the habit stacking tips as well.
And so the market for carbonated beverages has boomed in the last few years. And I just want your final take on a few of the functional beverages, which have added prebiotics and some probiotics, and they're marketed as gut health. So the Poppy brands and that kind of stuff. Are those good options for patients? If you think so, and what should we tell them about those types of options?
Great question. So for my patients that are really utilizing those high sugary beverages, they're drinking regular sodas and things like that, I think it's a good transitional drink. I don't think it's something that, again, we should be super excited about. And because it still has those added sugars, they can still be easily overconsumed. But I think it is a great transitional option for patients, and it helps. A lot of patients kind of get off of those high sugary drinks, or even patients that are drinking a significant amount of alcohol or trying to transition off of alcoholic beverages, things like that. Those can be tools to kind of bridge that gap. But ultimately, I still want to get most of my patients more towards just water in general, or maybe some electrolyte supplements. As far as the prebiotics, I don't really use them a lot or recommend them personally.
I'd agree with you that they're great transitional drinks, especially for someone who's already consuming a lot of added sugar through like sodas. It's a great stepping stone to get them to plain carbonated water and then just straight old, plain old water. So I agree with you completely on that. Nina, you've mentioned a few times that you work with patients. And so I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about you and how they can connect with you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I do see patients via telehealth. I'm a multi-state licensed dietitian, so I see patients in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Florida. Right now, there are some other states that do allow for my license to kind of cross those lines. And I work with mostly people that are trying to focus on weight management, lose weight, some athletes, and any patients that are embarking on peptide therapies as well. So if you need to reach out to me, you can just find my website, metabolicrds.com, or reach out on Instagram at metabolicrds as my handle.
Yes. So I will link to all of Nina's information down below in the show notes. But Nina, thank you so much for this fun kind of quick tip episode. It's been really great learning from you. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for all the great questions.
Okay, before we wrap up, I just wanted to share where you can learn even more from Nina. She's one of our expert speakers inside the Obesity Medicine Nutrition course. This is my flagship training that I've created to help clinicians confidently guide patients who want to lose weight using realistic, sustainable nutrition strategies. This course is designed for both providers and dietitians who want to bridge the gap between evidence-based guidelines and real-world patient care. So whether you work in primary care, obesity medicine, or just find yourself answering nutrition questions every day, this course is everything you wish you'd learn in school. Inside the course, you'll find modules on motivational interviewing strategies, intuitive eating and how to use it alongside medical nutrition therapy, and how to support behavior change while patients are on anti-obesity meds, and of course, Nina's session on reverse dieting. You'll learn how to help patients safely rebuild metabolic health after chronic low-calorie dieting or weight regain has occurred. So if you're ready to feel more confident and effective when talking about food and weight, head to examroomnutrition.com/course to learn more and get signed up. And bonus, you will receive CME and CPEU credits for taking this course. So thanks again for being here. And as always, let's continue to make our patients healthier, one exam room at a time. I'll see you next week.